One will be taken, the other left. Do I want to be taken or left? Which is good, which is bad? Let's think about it. Hey, my name's Justin Harrell. I challenge you to challenge yourself to think about less taught biblical topics. As a parent, there were times that I threatened to leave behind a kid if they weren't ready on schedule. Yeah, it's usually an empty threat, but its intent is to motivate the kid to get ready. It's not that effective because most of the time the kid's like,
okay, leave. I don't want to go to your boring family thing anyway. The food is probably gross. I'd rather stay here and play video games all day.
The phrase left behind has made its way into pop culture. Even people who are not Christians are familiar with the Left Behind series of books and movies. Do any of these have biblical basis? Is it even interpreted correctly? Is being left behind a bad thing or a good thing? These are the things we're going to think about. Again, a lot of our struggle with the Olivet Discourse comes from our presuppositions. How you view the topic Jesus is discussing will determine how you interpret one being taken and the other left. Let's read. Matthew 24, 38-42. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. It did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then two men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. People who see the rapture here will draw the conclusion that the one being taken is going in the rapture. Being taken is good. Being left behind, that's bad. People who see the second coming here will draw the conclusion that being taken away is being taken in judgment and death. That's bad. Being left behind, that's good. Depending on your denominational background, you may favor one view over the other. It's also possible you're not even aware of the opposing view. So who's right? Well, let's start with the rapture view. I already presented my view on what I think the context of this chapter is about. You can see that in the previous videos in this Olivet Discourse playlist. I don't think that Jesus is referring to the rapture here. He's referring to that time of tribulation and his return to the earth at his second coming. These events will bring an end to the age. Remember, Jesus is answering his disciples' questions. So if this doesn't refer to the rapture, then it doesn't help us with the interpretation here. So let's move on to the other view. It's pretty straightforward. But if you've only seen the rapture when you read these verses, it might seem shocking at first. Let's reread. Matthew 24, 38-42. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. Then two men will be in the field. One will be taken, the other left. Two women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. The argument goes something like this. Jesus is comparing the judgment of Noah's day to the judgment at the second coming. In Noah's day, the bad people were taken away in the flood. So based on context, when the man in the field is taken, he's the bad guy going off to judgment and death. When the woman grinding at the mill is taken, she's the bad girl going off to judgment and death. Well, there we go. And now you have something to think about. Whoa. Hold on a second. Not so fast. There's actually a few problems with this view as well.
Come on, man. I thought this video was over. I got things to do. All this talk about being taken makes me want to watch Liam Neeson.
Let's start with the logistics of this view. Jesus comes back and first wipes out all the non-believers by taking them. The believers are then left to inherit the earth. Well, where do we put the rapture? Well, we can't put it right before the taking. If we did, then all the believers would be caught up to the clouds, and there wouldn't be two men in the field to separate. The earth would only contain non-believers. Okay, so we put the rapture after the taking. Jesus takes the bad off to judgment and death. Then he catches up the believers to the clouds and returns to earth. So then what's the point of going to the clouds to come right back down? And there are no mortal people left to go into the kingdom age. Isaiah 65:20. No more shall an infant from there live but a few days, nor an old man who has not fulfilled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed. This verse talks about sinners in the kingdom age. If they were all wiped out and the righteous have been translated into glorified immortal bodies, how does any of this happen? But there's even more problems based on the original language. This view hangs on the words took and taken being the same thing. If Noah's taken was bad, then Jesus' taken was bad.
But Liam Neeson had taken. Yeah, that was pretty good.
The problem is the Greek words used.
Nerd alert.
One for the word translated as took in Noah's days is airo. The word for taken is paralambano. These are two different words in Greek, not something that is obvious to the English reader. The word translated as left is the Greek word aphiemi. Let's start getting the definitions of these words. Paralambano means to take with oneself, to join to oneself, or to receive something transmitted, to receive with the mind. Do you see judgment and death in these definitions? No. In fact, where it's used is surprising. Matthew 1:24. Then Joseph, being aroused from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord commanded him, and took to him his wife. John 14:2 and 3. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again, and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. Don't just take my word for it. Look up this Greek word in the text and see all the different places it's used. It has a positive connotation. That means it sounds like being taken is a good thing. We've looked at taken, now let's look at left, which is translated from aphiemi. It means to send away, to bid go away, or to let go, to let alone, to disregard, to omit, to neglect, or to leave, to go away from. Do any of these definitions sound positive? No. In fact, the first definition is used of a husband divorcing his wife, to send her away. 1 Corinthians 7:11. But even if she does depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband. And a husband is not to divorce his wife. The last word to discuss introduces even more things to think about. Until the day that Noah entered the ark and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. Airo, translated as took, means to raise up, to raise from the ground, take up, raise upward, elevate, lift up, draw up, or to take upon oneself and carry what has been raised, to bear, or to carry off, to remove, to take out of the way. This is a tricky one because it could go either way. It depends who Jesus is referring to. It sounds like on one hand, he could actually be referring to those on board the ark. On the other hand, he could be referring to those outside the boat being removed from the earth. Something to think about for sure. So now what? We've eliminated the rapture based on context, but taken sounds positive and left sounds negative. Now we have no options.
No, there is another.
Sometimes I find that when two sides are arguing an issue, that there's a narrow path winding up the middle, a third option. This is where my thinking is as of now. The context is second coming, and taken is good, and left behind bad. Then is it possible that Jesus, when talking about gathering his elect at his second coming, is referring to Jews that are now believing? Then the rest of surviving humanity will be judged as Christ judges the nations, and he separates the sheep from the goats. Or perhaps it includes all believers at that time, as he divides the sheep from the goats right then and there. But both scenarios allow mortals to enter into the kingdom age. I'm not 100% sure, but it's something worth thinking about.